In this segment, we want to figure out what did Gallup do with the 34 themes. Once they identified from all those 2 million interviews, they took all that information and they created these 34 themes. What did they do with it? Once you take the assessment, what do I do with them? So that's what we're going to cover in this segment. Basically, there are 4 quadrants that Gallup took all the 34 themes and they dropped them into each one of these different quadrants. What you're going to notice here, you have a download that PDF that you can download for your assignment to work from yourself. I want to just describe these very briefly, give you a couple of instructions so that you can pause the video afterwards and do this assignment on your own. Basically, with the quadrants and all the 34 themes, they're looking at these 2 quadrants are people themes. This quadrant is the relationship building. Basically, these are people who listen to understand in order to most appropriately respond. So these are basically, these people with these kind of themes are the glue that hold a relationship together, that hold a team together, that really are instrumental to an organization understanding the heartbeat or the pulse of the organization. The influencing themes are also people themes, but these are big picture kind of people. We tend to notice them, and we'll talk about them in a little bit further. The executing themes, these are people who make things happen. Okay? They get where we're going, what we're about, and because of how they're wired, they just say, let me do it. I know how to do this. And strategic thinking themes, this is the realm of possibilities. These are the people whose mind doesn't shut down. And so, and we will talk about this, but these themes are so tightly integrated, it's hard to pull them apart. What I would like you to do is at this point in time, find your 5 themes. Where do they fall in this grid? And go ahead and just highlight each one of those so that you can find yourself. Some of you might find that you have a theme that has dropped into all 4 quadrants, and that's great. Celebrate that. That's who you are. Basically, what the research, Gallup's research has told us is you are more unusual that way, that the rest of us generally fall into 2 or 3 of the categories, and once in a while, if there may be those individuals of you that have all 5 in one quadrant. If that is the case, it may either be the strategic thinking quadrant, because those are really hard to parse. They really are together, and or the relationship building quadrant. And we're going to talk about each one of these categories individually. So we'll talk about that a little bit further. So again, find where you are, recognize where you are, and celebrate where you are. Another one of your downloads is what we want to understand is beyond, when you look at this grid, you're going to see all 34 themes. And it's like, well, what do I do with all the other ones? Does that mean they're not part of who I am? That document is basically a document of all the 34 themes in alphabetical order. And there are 4 columns there. You're going to notice that there's a column for StrengthsFinder. What I want you to do in that column is to mark, put an X there, a check mark there, that identify that you have taken this, these are your results. Now, the other thing I want you to do, if you have taken the StrengthsFinder before and you remember what those themes are, go ahead and mark those too, because they don't go away. In fact, what we know is that there's that opportunity to understand each one of the themes and embrace it in different ways. An assignment that I want you to do is when you download all of your reports, and I want you to do that because the reports from your Gallup, basically have a definition of each one of those themes for you. That definition is written just for you. It is taken into account the way you answered the assessment, all 177 questions. And if you think that you're not necessarily a believer of what I'm saying, go back and look at the book and compare. For instance, we talked about the theme activator. If you are an activator, look at your description of activator, go back and look at the description in the book. You're going to find in the book that's a very generic description. I want you to own the one that's written for you. And then I want you to do 2 things. I want you to highlight everything that you resonate with. You know it's true about you. In fact, you go, how do they know this? From this quick assessment, how do they know this about me? So highlight everything. The other thing I want you to do is cross out anything that doesn't sound like you. You don't resonate with it. You go, that isn't necessarily me, okay? Because what we're going to find out now is whether or not that is a dominant theme for you. There will be 1 or 2 or 3 of those themes that you highlight the most, and it may not be number 1 anymore, okay? We don't care about the numbers anymore. We know what those top 5 are. And from this point in time, those dominant themes are the ones that as you stay aware and alert, and as you are getting up every day, wanting to live a strengths-based life, pay attention to how and when and where you are filtering those choices and decisions, and which themes really are the drivers for you. It's going to be those dominant themes for you. And if you've taken the StrengthsFinder before and you have repeat themes, those are your dominant themes. If this is your first time taking the StrengthsFinder and you take it again sometime in the future, my guess is whatever you identify as a dominant theme today probably will show up again. If something drops off, comes in, keep holding on to that. We know that the strengths don't operate individually by themselves. I mean, it isn't like we live life and choices and decisions out of one theme. They all integrate together. I already talked to you about strategic and maximizer, how those are both influencers for me. Your themes influence together for you as well. So on this sheet that you have, make sure you identify your themes in the StrengthsFinder column. Anything that you hear about or read about and you think, why didn't that theme show up? That really is me. Mark it in the always column. You're going to hear about and read about and study about some themes that you're going to say, never in this lifetime is that going to be me. Go ahead and mark those in the rarely column. And then there will be a majority of the 34 themes that fall into this pocket of situation or scenario or venue that you say, well, sometimes. Mark those in the sometimes column. What will happen by the time you are done and you are done with this whole series is you will have a pretty clear indication of your top 5, the always. We're going to really couple those together and make those probably about your top 10 or 12. And then you're going to have this middle tier with a few on the bottom. And that'll give you an idea of the fallout, the rollout of your themes. Now, why is this information, or how is this information, how does it play out in real life? You know, one scenario would be this. Think about, I don't know about you, but I love Friday nights. Friday nights are always very fun to kind of the end of the work week, time to hang out with family, with friends, whatever, and many times it's going out to eat or whatever. Well, think about the group of people that go with you. And let's say there's 4, 5, 6 people. If there's somebody in your group of friends or family that is a person that is high in responsibility, is that person that takes charge in the sense of making sure that everything is taken care of. You know, there's that loyalty and commitment. I'm guessing that will be the person that either makes the reservation, if you need a reservation. They may be the person that set up the whole evening anyway, or they might have been the person, they may be the person who gets to the restaurant first, you know, make sure you have a table, whatever. Then your person with communication may walk in, and this is the person that talks. They're the external processor. They walk in talking, they just keep talking. They really don't care if there's a conversation going on. They'll just insert themselves into that conversation. But then you have an includer who might walk in. If you have an includer in your group, the includer wants to make sure that nobody is left out. So while they might be watching communication, just talking, includer might turn to the next person and say, I didn't know that, or what are you thinking about that? What do you think about that? You know, and think about this. There might be a person with individualization who is that person that's kind of watching what everybody's ordering. You know, knowing ahead of time, I knew they were going to pick that, because people with individualization are people that know the specifics of other people. They study them, they recognize them. And there might be a person with harmony in your group that is the conflict avoider and or just wants to make sure that there's harmony that flows throughout this whole evening. That's just a few of the themes that might show up. A person with command might be the person, if something is wrong with an order, that would, you know, call the server back and say, take care of this. But everyday life, I want you to play to your strengths. I want you to understand your strengths. I want you to understand how they play out in everyday life.